a growing family
Yes.
of children and grandchildren, so I'm not even going to pretend to remember them
Right.
all. So give us
We
a quick
can't either.
rundown.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
a quick rundown.
Why don't you tell about our family, dear? You played a key role.
So we have 4 children: Noah, Amelia, Eli, and Joel Heath, known as Heath. And we have a son-in-law,
Taylor is
Taylor, and we have a grandbaby, Marshall, and he's 2. And just announcing to you all, we're having a girl.
Our daughter's having another, not
So we're really excited. So Eloise will be here in November.
November. Yep.
So,
Yep.
Congratulations
well,
Yep.
thank you.
to you both. And over to you, Father Joel. Swap
Yeah.
places with you. And you guys know the drill. Fire away.
Oh, I don't get to keep talking. I was gonna tell about how.
Speeches,
Oh.
you know.
We were going to brag on our Aggie. We just graduated an Aggie on Thursday, and we've got pharmacy school graduate coming up next weekend in Amarillo. That's our son-in-law, graduated from Texas Tech Pharmacy School. But anyway, what do you have to say this morning?
I'll ask the same kind of question I did before.
Okay.
Mission. Can you tell me a little bit about mission in your church and how you see it in the diocese?
Mission in our church. Okay, well, we have a unique situation, I feel like, at Holy Apostles. Not totally unique, but not the norm, perhaps. Our church is in an area, and there's all sorts of population that lives all around us, but not right around us. And there's not really a neighborhood, per se, that we exist in. And so we do mission maybe a little bit more intentionally than the person next door, who's with whom our paths might cross frequently. We've got several things that we're doing locally and nationally and internationally. I guess probably the easy place to start for me would be on the last ring or circle there. We've been for a long time Centurion partners with Father Connex Nurinda in St. Peter's Chombe Parish in Malawi, and that involves both financial support every month, and it also involves prayers for him every time the Mass is celebrated. We're also partners with a priest in the church in Sri Lanka, the Anglican Church in Sri Lanka and Pakistan, and we were glad to hear that Father Nadim was unhurt in the recent attacks there, but we also pray for him and support him in different ways. Locally, we work with the Union Gospel Mission, with ministry to all the many people that come through the doors of the Gospel Mission, usually through financial gifts, but we've also had some teams go and assist in serving meals and things like that. The more immediate context at Holy Apostles, we talked about this, by the way, in our last group, about how we all know that evangelism has traditionally been a dirty word among Episcopalians and Anglicans. We've talked a lot about how we can share our faith and do mission right in precisely the place where God has planted us, in the 76126 zip code. So we've started small with a few initiatives. Our people I'm excited about, and I've got several Holy Apostles people here, so I can't fudge on the facts here at all. I've got to be just 100% honest. No political answers. Last fall we had Trunk or Treat, which was an initiative of the lay people to try to make an impact in our immediate community, and we were really pleased to have a good number of the local kiddos come and enjoy just a little bit of the generosity of our parish. And one of the things that I was really excited about was that we did something for them, and we asked nothing of them in return. We're just giving to them, just showing them love and concern and interest. And so that's where we're at in terms of program. Always I'm preaching and teaching the fact that we're all called to be engaged in mission in our own walk of life, whatever that is. And so we talk a lot about that in our parish. What particularly is your area of gifting, and what is it that you're supposed to be doing in this mission? The kingdom of God may come, and His will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So I hope that gets somewhere near your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. You recognize them, right? Or do I do that?
You can.
Oh, okay,
You
great.
do it in your bunch.
Judy,
I'll
let's.
take
Yeah,
notes.
okay. Very
Mr. In
good.
the back, you get a few hands. I'll keep a tab for you.
How do you see our involvement or participation with ACNA? Obviously, that's a topic that's getting addressed on many levels.
Right,
now.
right.
And also give us your comments about GAFCON, your whole impressions of GAFCON and ACNA, and where we are in all of this right
Okay. These questions are the source of great anxiety among, I'll speak for the clergy because I are one. Probably some of the laity, the more plugged in you are in terms of what's going on, the more questions you might have, to put it gently. We had someone ask this, I think it was the question number 2 or maybe 3, so we started easy downstairs, so this is number 2. The question about the study of women in holy orders and the report that was given, which led, of course, our bishop to step back a little bit from his involvement there, and of course a statement that came from our standing committee, which you and I were both part of crafting that statement back when I was on the standing committee, and it's tricky. I don't know how to characterize my thoughts on it other than to say, in 2008, when we left the Episcopal Church, we needed a place to land, and we found a place to land, and the place we found to land is not perfect, as every place one finds to land is not perfect. This question, of course, of women in holy orders is one that will have to be solved, and obviously our bishop took a bold and courageous stand, as he usually does, always does, I think, and says this is where the Scripture and the tradition have spoken, and this is where we are in the Diocese of Fort Worth. Now, what that means for our future relationship, I don't know exactly. As I said to the group downstairs, we were downstairs, right, dear? Downstairs, obviously, A and non-A cannot be true at the same time. If we're right that holy orders is exclusively for males, then those who hold that women may be deacons and priests, or perhaps even in some cases that some believe that they may be bishops, those are two contradictory things that cannot be held together in the same mind. And so this idea of two integrities, of course, is absurd on the face of it. We in the Diocese of Fort Worth perhaps are a little bit more keenly aware of these sorts of things because of where we've come from and the fact that we're currently fighting off a lawsuit, right? One of the major precipitating issues for our leaving the Episcopal Church was these questions of who may be ordained, and there's nothing any more fundamental to who we are as a diocese and who we are as a church than deciding that, right? So the position of the Church Catholic and the position of the Scriptures has always been that a woman may not be a priest. Let's just stick on that one order right now. So if a woman who's been ordained a priest in another diocese in the ACNA is celebrating the Eucharist, I don't recognize that as being a valid sacrament. I don't receive that sacrament from her. So that's a problem. How do you ever have communion, full communion, in that sort of a context? So that problem will have to be solved. Do I sound like I'm a little bit reluctant about the ACNA? Yes, I have a tremendous amount of reservation with which I see our future there. At GAFCON, same sort of thing. I went to GAFCON last year. The bishop was kind enough to put my name in to be invited, and I went to Jerusalem, and that was an experience of a lifetime. But yes, we looked around, those of us from the Diocese of Fort Worth, and we saw a lot of people who did not share our view on several questions, but of course the question of holy orders is fundamental. So yeah, there's some anxiety that I myself feel about those relationships, and I see our role. You didn't ask this, but I'm going to answer what you didn't ask. I see our role in the Diocese of Fort Worth as continuing to lead and to call the church back to the tradition, back to the Scriptures. Yeah. Father, did you hit?
John, did you have your hand up early on?
Well,
Please.
I was going to expand on that same question.
Okay.
a little bit. And Paul, how have you been involved, if so, within ANCA, conference that is our homegrown, so to speak?
Yeah. Yeah.
To what extent have you actively been involved with that organization, if any? And secondly, how should the Diocese of Fort Worth be involved in the future?
Okay, so the easy answer to the first question is I've not had any formal involvement in the ACNA. I mean, I'm a priest of the Diocese of Fort Worth, so I have that connection. We pray through their cycle of prayer as part of our larger prayers and everything, but I've never been a delegate to Provincial Assembly. I'm not on any of the committees that ACNA has, and I'm on enough committees in the diocese, so I'm grateful that I'm not having to go to ACNA stuff as well. But yeah, the honest answer is I'm not engaged there on a formal basis. As I said, I did get to go to GAFCON last year, and so kind of skipped from the diocese to the global communion step there somehow. And the other part of the question was, how do I see our involvement going forward with ACNA? I think that really depends on the ACNA. We've clearly said we stand where the church has always stood, again on this whole study of women in holy orders. The onus or the burden of proof is on those who would develop something that is new in the 2,000-year history of the church, or something that is not to be found in the scriptures. And so I think to a certain extent maybe we can patiently wait for that study to come around to discover what we've always known, that the church has always taught and the scriptures have always taught. So, and I don't mean to sound snarky or smart alecky about that, but I think we're in a good place in the Diocese of Fort Worth. We're secure in our position. Somebody.
Unworthy.
Over here? Yep, yep.
You mentioned that there are other issues you have with GAFCON. Can you explain those?
Other issues besides
the women's ordination?
Well, the question, yeah, I guess I'm thinking in my mind about the issue that popped up last year, not too far before GAFCON in time, with the woman who was ordained to the episcopate. And I'm trying to remember now, is it Sudan? Yeah, South Sudan. So then the question was not just this issue of women in holy orders, but what about the whole nature of authority within the communion? Is it just going to be a repeat of what we have in the Anglican communion more broadly, where if this province or this bishop makes a noise about this deviation from doctrine and discipline and all that okay, well, we'll not invite their spouse to come, or we'll disinvite them to the meeting. I mean, so the question, we debated this, Judy, you can help me because my memory's not great. We debated this a fair amount, as I recall, in the standing committee, this question of what is the nature of authority there, or does it all just boil down to whatever Bishop what's-his-name wants to do in his diocese? Is there anything that GAFCON can definitively say and do? That's what I was thinking. So,
Jerusalem Declaration you're okay with?
the Jerusalem Declaration, is there something in particular that you've got in mind? Yes.
I'm thinking 39 articles.
Right.
Thinking those kind of things.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is, again, Judy remembers we had a very lively discussion of these sorts of things several months back in the ACNA. It certainly is not where I'm coming from in terms of my churchmanship as a Catholic Anglican, for sure. We're, I think I told this downstairs, us Fort Worth types, at least of my perspective, were pretty underrepresented at GAFCON last summer. That wasn't the majority report at all. We didn't register much on the scale. Although I have to say to that question as well, what was interesting to me was everywhere that I went, and people, you know how it goes. You're at a conference, you've got your name tag. Oh, as soon as people found out I was from Fort Worth, They immediately knew that Bishop Eicher is my bishop, and that immediately communicated something to them about the stance that we have taken and the sacrifices that we've made. Yeah.
Father Mark, and then back to you, Mrs. Worley.
Let me try to go to a little more locally now.
Yes.
So in our profiles, so we're seeking a visionary leader.
Right.
So my question would be, how have you exhibited that in the last 6-7 years at Holy Apostles, and what is your vision for the diocese moving forward?
Okay, let me answer the second part of that. You're asking me about my vision, how I've lived that out in my ministry in Holy Apostles, but the second part of it was for the Diocese of Fort Worth going forward. Yeah. So my vision for the Diocese of Fort Worth doesn't involve numbered points of a plan. I've always found that I have an idea about things or a vision for things, and then I get in the situation that I have an idea of it. That today is no exception, by the way. This is not at all how I dreamed about it last night as I slept fitfully. But it's good, it's good. The vision that I've had for things always runs up against reality. There were some big hopes and dreams and aspirations that I had for Holy Apostles, and then I got there and I found out, okay, I'm following a priest that's been here for almost 2 decades. There's quite a bit of healing and grieving and all kinds of things that we have to get through before we can get into all the things that I thought I was really called there to do. I think the same thing is certainly going to be true in the Diocese of Fort Worth. Of course, I don't know everything there is to know about anything, and I think as we come together around whoever it is that God calls to be our bishop, I think that his vision will be tempered by the realities on the ground, so to speak, and the wisdom and counsel of the clergy and the laity. So I think we, broad brushstrokes, as I tell the folks at Holy Apostles all the time, and I think everybody who's here from my parish can attest to this. Maybe they can put their fingers in their ears when I'm about to say this, but we've got a great thing. It's good to be us, but we want to grow that and strengthen that and hand that on stronger than we inherited it to the next generation. And that's my dream for the Diocese of Fort Worth, whether I remain at Holy Apostles for the next 20 years or whether I'm called to be bishop, that what it is that we have that's so precious, that we value so much, that we build it, strengthen it, fund it, resource it, and share it with the next generation, and again pass it on stronger than what we found. That's I know I feel good about that in my parish. That you know, if I get struck by an asteroid this afternoon, Holy Apostles in many ways I'll be leaving it better than I found it, and I found it in good shape. So that anyway, yeah.
Mrs. Worley, and then back up here.
Going back to provincial.
Please.
You kind of, I think this is where you're coming from, that
Mhm.
you're a little uncomfortable with ACNA and then the direction that they're heading, and as well as GAFCON. Do you, in the future, do you see another option? And
Yeah,
if so, what is it?
I don't have a crystal ball. I do not know what the future holds. I think let's take the ACNA for instance. I mean, the particular issue with ACNA for this priest is the fact that we can't speak firmly and decisively about that which the church has always spoken firmly and decisively, and the scriptures are crystal clear on. It's a real problem that I have with, and I'll tell you what priests say. I don't know if any lay people say this, but a lot of priests say, like, didn't we just leave the Episcopal Church because of this sort of nonsense? And now, and some of this, admittedly, is like emotional reactions. A lot of us, but I'll speak only for myself, thought, and I said this, I think, at the standing committee, I know I said it to the bishop, we left the Episcopal Church or we're being sued for everything that we have, only to encounter this same sort of thing all over again. Because let's be honest, all of us expected, if there was a study done in good faith that looked at the scriptures and the tradition, it can only lead to one conclusion. on the question of who may be ordained. So obviously we were disappointed by that. GAFCON, frankly, I don't really know enough to say exactly. I don't know that day in and day out GAFCON is making that much impact on my life as a parish priest, and I'm not even 100% sure. Yes, it was great for us to come together and make a declaration of what it was that we stood for within the communion. We all know that GAFCON represents something like 70-80% of the communion's membership. So that's powerful, and I appreciate that. And I had a great time at GAFCON, don't get me wrong. It's just that there are some questions there, and I don't know what the future holds with all that. And I don't know that anybody does ultimately.
Got one here, and then
Yeah.
over to you, Father.
Yeah, sure. Coming back to our local diocese, and you made a comment about wanting to take what we've established and grow it.
Right.
But our numbers speak to the contrary. We're actually not. We don't have a growth curve necessarily. as
No argument. Yeah.
Diocese. So,
Right.
in your opinion, what are those barriers? If you become bishop,
Right.
what needs to change, and how do we reinvigorate our diocese and the parishes in
Right.
particular to get us back on a growth?
Right. It's a great question. It's something that comes up at least once a year at Executive Council. We look at the numbers from the previous year's parochial reports, and this has happened for all the years I've been on the Executive Council, which is, I can't remember now, three or four maybe, that we tend to come in sort of flat. Yes, there are some parishes that are growing, some of them fairly dramatically, some others that are in steep decline, I should say, not deep, but steep decline. But overall, the numbers of Sunday Mass attendance, which is what's being measured there, is it's always a little disappointing. We're not on a great trajectory there. Do I know all the reasons why that's the case? Well, we all face this as parish priests, as rectors and vicars and priests in charge in our own local context. I'll just talk about Holy Apostles because that's what I know better than anything else. I'm not so much of an expert on other people's parishes. At Holy Apostles, we have a congregation that skews a little more elderly than maybe the church down the street of a different tradition. There's historical reasons for a lot of that, I'm sure. But so I'm burying a lot of people. I'm certainly doing more funerals than I am baptisms. I think that's true in a lot of parishes. It's also true that we're moving into a period in our nation's history. Not moving. We've moved into a period. It's happened quite a while ago, where in our nation, religious adherence among younger generations is at historic lows. You all know the figure that gets bandied about all the time about what percentage of the population doesn't have any religious affiliation, the so-called nuns. It's the fastest growing demographic by most studies I've seen. And so we're moving into a place that we're unaccustomed to being. It probably wasn't quite as magical as we tend to say in hindsight, but this idea that in the 1960s and 70s you build a parish in a neighborhood that's going up, a brand new subdivision, and then it just sort of fills up with people. Well, but that wasn't just Episcopalians and Anglicans that were experiencing that. That was all kinds of denominations. The Presbyterians, the Methodists, all of those, they all show these numbers during that period of history where they're going up, and all of them are going down. The Roman Catholic Church is experiencing many of the same problems that we are, with far less mass attendance and religious adherence in general among younger generations. So it's a big challenge. I don't know what all the answers are to that. One of the things that I know is true is that people are looking for authenticity. They're looking for genuine community. They're looking for people that are really living out their faith, right? And so one of the things we've seen in our parish that has helped, we've held our own and a little bit better, despite the fact that I've done a lot of funerals. And we're not in an area that is growing by leaps and bounds where our parish is located. And that is when people find us, which is not easy to do if you've ever been to Holy Apostles, we're off the beaten path. When they find us, they find genuine community there. They hear the scriptures being preached and taught. They experience people that are friends with each other. They're welcoming people into relationship with them and everything. And then a lot of people who maybe don't quite understand everything we do in our service, they feel drawn to the community that exists there, and the love and the warmth of the people, and then they'll learn eventually what it is that we're doing. But yeah, we're all of us struggling with demographic trends and societal trends. Communicating the faith clearly is really important. Yeah, I could probably ramble on a little bit longer, but that's kind of the basic answer off the top of my head.
Yes, sir. I want to thank you for your honesty and for being sincere. Having said that, you as a priest in this diocese,
Right.
you have been a part of the challenges facing this diocese and part of the solution. And our relationship with ACN is what defines whom we are now and
Right.
where we stand now.
Right.
As we move forward according to this in future,
Yes.
what do you think will be the mission of the church in relationship to ACN, so as to have a clarity of who we are and where we are going? Because if we don't know where we are going, we may not know how to get there.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Father, thank you for that. Father Akankube is, if I'm hearing you right, you're saying I'm part of the problem, but maybe part of the solution. Good. We all are. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's true. Thank you. Yes, and we don't want to make a bad situation worse by misunderstanding it or coming at it in the wrong way. But and you didn't say this exactly, but we talked about it in our last group, so it's kind of back here in the back of my mind. How is it that we work toward greater unity and greater cooperation, especially with other Anglicans? Well, we do that by standing firm for the truth and calling, I don't know any nice, pleasant way to say this, we need to call the ACNA to return once again to the truth of the Scriptures and the tradition as we have received it on this question that comes up so often about holy orders. But yeah, it is true that the hope in the future to which we're called involves our clearly communicating who we are, what we believe. I completely agree with that. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't want to be part of the problem. I do want to be part of the solution if I can be, for sure.
Father Klein, and then we'll bounce back to you.
Father Klein, something I've learned over many years of being ordained now is how much more complicated our culture is today than it was when I was ordained.
Right.
And I'm putting this mostly on a theological level because the church is being asked today to sort through so much in terms of the sophisticated nature of the world we live in. And I'm thinking like anywhere from technology to how we communicate,
Right.
to how this all impacts our homes, the growing up of our children. And which means, in my mind, that theological formation for our priests are just so terribly important.
Mm-hmm.
And can you talk about that a little bit? We have,
Right.
this diocese has traditionally supported the Shoda House,
Mhm.
not its only, but one of its major seminary
Right.
outreaches to form our priests. We've used Trinity School for
Mhm.
Ministry in the Institute. It's a fine seminary. But how we do that is not only going to help us raise up people who can take over our parishes and lead them into the future, but also give them the theological tools they need to think through this incredibly complicated environment
Right.
that our churches have to survive in.
Yep.
So, with that in mind, what do you have to say about theological education?
Well, that's something that we've talked about quite a bit, especially on the Commission on Ministry, where I've served for I don't know how many years now, probably 7 or 8 years, something like that. How are we forming young priests to do the work that not only God has called them to do, but we're asking them to do, to be pastors, shepherds, physicians of souls in parishes. Nashotah House, I'm a son of the house myself, so I have lots of affection and sentimental feelings about Nashotah House, but is that the best model for preparing someone to do what I'm doing at Holy Apostles in 2019? In some ways, yes, still a great model. In other ways, maybe not so much. One of the things when you're talking, Father Klein, that occurs to me that's a real strength of the so-called cathedral model, and if you're not familiar with that, the idea is you're sort of an intern or an apprentice at a cathedral or a parish under a senior priest who's mentoring you. It's not such an academic experience in a classroom hundreds of miles away in the frozen north in Wisconsin, but right in a parish where you're engaged week by week in Bible study and hospital visits and the worship of the church. In that way, you're learning as the culture that you talk about that's so complicated and confused, the way that it impacts with week to week. I think there's real strengths to that. I think most of our men that go to seminary get a semester or a year or something like that. I can't remember. I was a little different because I came in for a second opportunity to go to seminary because I didn't get it right the first time. It's not quite true, but anyway, this idea that you're assigned to a parish and you serve in that parish on a fairly limited basis. I think we'll have to discern together what the best way forward is, and I don't know that I can say definitively that I know, but we talk about this all the time amongst the clergy of the diocese. There was a model that worked really well for a long time. Is that the best model going forward? I think there's real. Yes, and that's another piece that's super, not philosophical or theological, but practical. If you were to borrow all of your tuition and fees to get you through Nashotah House, you're talking about something approaching $100,000 by my last estimation of student loan debt. Well, that doesn't put you in a strong position to serve a parish out in the wildwood that pays diocesan minimum, for example. Yeah, it's a great question, and one we'll have to figure out. I can't help but say I hope this is not too far off the point that Father Klein's trying to make, that to realize where we are in our culture and how different it was from when you were ordained, or frankly when I was in seminary back in the early to mid 90s for the first time. Try figuring out what happened in the news today by watching the evening lineup of cable news shows. It's almost impossible to discern what actually happened. What you'll get is 4 or 5 or 10 different perspectives on how it's interpreted and spun. But just a straightforward presentation of this happened today, it's almost impossible to get at in our culture. Because we live not only in a post-Christian culture, we live in a post-truth culture in an awful lot of ways. Does it make it hard for those of us who wear collars, or those of us who sit in the pews and want to share the faith with those outside the church? It makes it really hard. Also makes it hard to share the faith with those inside the church. Yeah. Thank you. What?
Father Hampton.
Yes.
What do you believe to be your greatest talent or your greatest strength? How would you use that for the growth of churches in this diocese? And what areas do you believe you need support?
My greatest area of strength, I suppose, it may not sound like what you would expect to hear, but love. Love is my greatest strength. I love Christ and I love His church, and I've given my life to it. I have sacrificed everything. I've bet the farm, so to speak, on it. The greatest thing that I've been able to accomplish in both of the parishes that I've served as rector is to just love the people that God brings to us and pour my life into their lives. invite them to come with me on a journey to growth in holiness, to eventually behold God as He is and worship Him forever in that place, that He prepares for us. So that may sound real general. Now, there are particular things that I'm good at, and there are other things that I'm pretty bad at. I think anybody sitting back there on 2 rows behind you can tell you what I'm bad at, but I love the people. I give myself to them. I expect that whoever the next bishop of this diocese is will be called to love and give themselves to the people of this diocese and to serve them as their shepherd and to live a sacrificial life as our bishop has done these many years to shepherd the flock at some significant cost. What I'm not good at, Shelley corrected me in our last question and answer session that I'm actually not bad at bean counting, but I don't get up in the morning and race to the parish because I love doing administration. A lot of that's necessary. What motivates me is I love people and I want to give the sacraments to them. I want to give Jesus to them. I want to give myself to them. And so I would, if I were elected bishop, have to surround myself with people that are good at bureaucracy so I could focus on the people. And as I said in my questionnaire, primary concern is shepherding the people you look around and see wearing the collars, because they're the ones that day in and day out are doing the work of ministry and leading the laity to do the work of ministry in their particular location. And
Father Chris?
yeah.
Shelley, what are your hopes and concerns should your husband become bishop?
His
Do I need to give you the microphone?
greatest strength is also his greatest weakness. I guess that's how it is with all of us. When he was Air Force, the Air Force owned him. He was gone. And we did well. We did okay. And then he became a priest and married the church, basically. And I don't resent that at all. Because he's married to the church, I'm married to the church. And we have a great love for the church. We love our people. We're jealous of our people. We protect them. We want the best for them. And I guess saying that his greatest weakness is probably he will probably work himself to death. Because he loves the church, he loves this diocese, he loves the people. There are no boundaries. We speak of boundaries and but when it's a family, you don't say, I'm at my kid's soccer game. Yeah, I no longer play soccer, but we don't, there have been times in our lives that our kids are beautiful because they have learned to postpone birthdays, and they've learned to, through the Air Force, Dad's gone for a year. When you get back, we'll be going to Disney World or something, But it's the way of the church. You call us in the middle of the night. Jim, call me in the middle of the night. We'll get to you. It's just how it is. I guess that's my biggest concern. When if he were to become elected, we go from being a family of 100 to a
Or
lot
something
more.
like that, yeah.
To a big family. And do I have any doubt that he can, that he wouldn't be able to do the work? Absolutely not. He would throw himself completely into it. And I think that's what my trepidation is. So if you think, oh, he's bringing his wife again, it was the only time I could see him, so I just came with him. So our love for the people, and we spent 4 years out in Breckenridge, and they have a heart too, and I think one of his strengths will be not forgetting the little guy. I don't mean, it sounds like
Smaller parishes and
smaller
greater
parish and stuff, and that we all are a family, and that even when we stay at Holy Apostles, we need you. We need you. Lisa, I need you. And we need one another, and I think that's what we forget. I think we forget whether plans come, plans go. Whoever this person is that will be bishop needs you. He's going to need all of you, and so discernment is huge, because whoever it is, if it's not him, we're behind, and we're family. We're family. We might have the crazy sister here and there, but we're good. We're good.
We do.
We love the family, warts and all, but it's unity and being together. And okay.
That's good. There was no sign there. There was no sign there. I'm just getting tired of holding the microphone.
Father Estes.
Father, we all know well the burdens and stresses that this biker has carried and done in the last decade or more. If you're elected, you're in terms of these ongoing lawsuits and everything to do with them, it's not just something you're going to deal with at the office. It's going to enter your home.
Sure.
How are you and Shelley going to handle that?
Well, what's that?
We're going to go to the gym.
Yeah. One of the things that we do that's been very healthful and helpful for us is that we've been in the habit for a number of years now, predating my time at Holy Apostles, predating my time as a priest, where we go as often as we can on the evening walk or maybe morning walk, if that's when it has to happen, and we'll walk together for 45 minutes or an hour or longer, and we'll just talk through what's going on with each other in our lives. And obviously I can't reveal sources and methods as a priest, but we can talk about things as they are impacting my life, and I rely on that a whole lot. I also have brother priests that I can rely on, talk to if I feel like my head's going to explode. Does this sound crazy to you, or is this just me? Kind of a conversation. We do try as well, and Shelley, you can maybe answer this better than I can, to have a life. A very wise person told me when I was first nominated, before it was ever officially known, but I had to tell my parish because I was resigning the standing committee. So this is dating back to early December of 2018. A wise priest said to me, Joel, you and Shelley have got to figure out a way to talk about anything other than this. And so we talk an awful lot about nursing, which Shelley's a nurse. We talk about plans for renovation at our house. We, of course, talk a lot about our children and our soon-to-be grandchildren, right now our grandchild. We talk about life in retirement. There's just a lot of things we try to do to sort of change the subject, because, and this isn't unique to priestly ministry, but priestly ministry can consume you. And I know that's something I struggle with a little bit anyway, because I want to get it right. So that's a great question. The answer may have been terrible, but anyway, it was a great question. Thank you. Thank you. Shelley, do you want to add anything to that? No? Okay. Very good. Who else is?
Let's
I'll flag it. We've got about 15 minutes.
Anything I've already answered didn't make any sense at all that you'd like to give me a second chance to make some sense of?
So in the unfortunate event that we don't prevail in the lawsuit,
Right.
Do you have a plan for day one, year one, where we go?
Do I have a plan for day one? Yeah, vision. I like vision. Plan. Plan is something that I imagine the next bishop will have to formulate with the deanery deans, with the trustees, etc. I can tell you what we're doing at Holy Apostles and what my vision at Holy Apostles is. We're with the majority of the parishes. Our building, most of its contents, even the very vestments that I wear to celebrate Mass, most of those things we would leave behind if God forbid, we lose this lawsuit. Which everybody needs to be reminded we didn't initiate. It was brought against us. My plan is we lose the lawsuit on, pick a date, June the 17th of whatever year. The next Sunday, June the 20th or the 21st or whatever that date is, we all gather together in worship and thanksgiving and celebration of the fact that that building and those vestments and those candlesticks and that stained glass, as fabulous as all of it was, that wasn't the church. It's the body that's gathered in somebody's barn or their lake house or wherever it is that we end up. So at Holy Apostles, what we're doing is we're inventorying all of our items and to the taper, to the maniple, what do we need to continue our mission and ministry if we lose all of this stuff? We've already secured a building. Luckily for us, just right down the road from us, 2 or 3 miles, so it wouldn't be a big upset. Now you got to drive all the way across the Metroplex to get to Holy Apostles. And so I also, what I've been doing is talking a lot to our people about these very ideas. As much as we love our church, and we've got one of the most beautiful worship spaces anywhere in the diocese at Holy Apostles, I'm very, very blessed. That's not Holy Apostles. And it's easy for us because Holy Apostles used to meet in a storefront building on Highway 80 back in the days, and that was also Holy Apostles. And there wasn't any stained glass in that storefront. There wasn't much of anything in there except for space. So my vision for the diocese would be that we stay together, that we continue to move into the future with hope, even if, God forbid, we do that with all of our possessions, all of our property. For the record, I don't expect that to happen. If the courts rule according to the law, we retain our property. I think that's. But anything can happen, as our bishop has reminded us, and our attorneys. Yeah. Did that kind of get at what you're talking about? Yeah.
I've wondered if you have any plans for maybe some of us consolidate, shrink the numbers.
Right.
I don't know how all of us can go forward.
Yeah.
As it were.
Right. I think that's something that would have to be discerned together, but what your point is a good one. So there's a lot of our, especially smaller parishes in smaller towns. Let's be honest. If you've got 6 people at Mass on Sunday, and you lose your building, that's going to be pretty tough to keep that 6 people together in anything that resembles that beautiful building that's lost. Now, maybe they can worship in someone's living room together as that same 6 people. But yeah, I don't have any easy answers to that, and I don't know what, frankly, the different parishes and priests would discern together that God's leading us to do. Combining parishes can be very tricky because they have different histories and personalities and all that sort of thing, but not impossible either. But yeah, but no, I don't have a day one, this is what we're going to do, because I don't think a bishop would be wise to impose that kind of a plan without consulting the people who are the stakeholders in that process. Yes, ma'am.
If you were a bishop, how
Mm-hmm.
would you feel about having a church like St. Andrews in your diocese? 1928 prayer book, evangelical for church.
I would feel great about it. I think we've got a pretty broad spectrum of churchmanship and practice and personality, however you would like to put it. I think, as I said in my questionnaire answers, it's not where I am personally, but that's also been true of Bishop Eicher and Bishop Pope before him and Bishop Davies before him, in the sense that we've got again a pretty broad spectrum of churchmanship, of approaches. So we've got parishes that are missile parishes, so to speak. And we've got parishes that are sort of prayer book Catholic parishes, sort of in the middle a little bit. And then there are a number, and even not just parishes, but there's a pretty broad variety of viewpoints among the priests. So I'm glad for that. I'm glad not everybody, the world would not be a better place if everybody looked at the world precisely the way Joel Hampton does. So I'm glad for some different perspective there. By the way, this may be helpful to you or not. The people at Holy Apostles are freaking out, many of them. Can you edit that part out there? The people at Holy Apostles are very anxious about a very different thing. Holy Apostles has been a historically Anglo-Catholic parish, and they've only had ever only had rectors that are Anglo-Catholic. Now, they had a few vicars back in the church planting mission days that were of slightly different persuasions, but all 5 rectors have all been Anglo-Catholic. One of my predecessors became Roman Catholic, one of them became Western Rite Orthodox, and so that's where Holy Apostles come from. You know what they're worried about? They're worried about, is the next bishop not Joel Hampton, because that's maybe what everybody's assuming. Then is the next bishop going to impose right to and west-facing masses on us? And I've assured them that the next bishop, no matter who he is going to have more sense than to try to do something like that. To impose upon Holy Apostles or any parish something that is not who they have historically been. We're right one, east-facing, every single Mass that we ever say, and that's been true for 25 years or more, I think. So, yeah.
We have about 8 minutes. I have a few hands that have asked questions and wanted to ask follow-ups. So let me ask in a couple of minutes. If you've not asked a question, pop your hand up, and then we'll try to get back around to those who have. Yes.
Just a personal question.
Yes.
How has this process affected you, changed your mind about anything? Or, give us your perspective.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Finally, somebody asked the question that I really want to answer. Dave, the check's in the mail. Dave's a parishioner of mine. I did not seek to be part of this process. I was approached and asked if I would be willing to be nominated, and my immediate answer was, I don't know about this. Let me think about this for a few weeks and pray about it. And finally got to the point where I thought, God's calling me to be obedient to something that I don't understand why he's calling me to be obedient to it. So I said, yes, that's where that went. What it's done for me, among a lot of other things, is it's gotten me out of my little parochial happy spot. I love being the rector of Holy Apostles. I think in many ways it's the greatest job in the world, certainly the best job I've ever had. And I don't say that just because you asked it, Dave, but it's really true. I've been saying this over and over again. I love being, Shelley, you're my witness. I get up and rush to the church every morning, get there hours before I'm required to be there by the published schedule. I love being the priest. I can completely envision myself being the rector there 20 years from now, that being my retirement job, so to speak. I only want to be bishop if God, by clear and convincing evidence, not only shows me, but shows the people and clergy of this diocese that's what he's calling us all to. But yeah, it's forced me to think about things at as we always say colloquially, at a 35,000 foot level, whereas most of my life is lived right down on the tarmac, right? Father Klein, I love you, and what you go through at St. John's is not a big concern of mine day in and day out at Holy Apostles. I got my own problems. Obviously, that's now I'm beginning to think about things in ways that do force me to look at the needs of priests and people outside of my own little narrow concerns day to day, and that's a good thing. It's been good for me. I think it's been good for the people at Holy Apostles as well. We've had all kinds of super lively discussions about all these sorts of things because the people at Holy Apostles, because who are human beings, they're not bad people, they're just people. we tend to be very parochial in our thinking. We tend to think about how's this going to affect my life. So hence the concern about right to and west-facing masses. Yeah, does that answer your question? But it's been agonizing. It's been a very long Lent, as I've characterized it, but it's been good as well. God stretched me and challenged me, and I'm grateful to be a part of the process, regardless of what happens on June the 1st. So,
5-minute warning. Yes, sir.
John.
Oh,
Here. Okay.
As bishop.
Yes.
In order to attack the questions of the decreasing Anglican population and so forth, and other issues,
Sure.
would you be more inclined to take a hard position on, say, the prayer book, or say, or any issue like that, as opposed to maybe compromising? Compromise is usually pretty good answer to things, but not always.
Right.
But I wondered how you'd stand on something like that.
Yeah, so that's the kind of the $64,000 question everybody wants to ask. I think for those who've been around for a while, if you remember the new prayer book that was new when I was 11 years old, if you remember the new prayer book, you know that there were all sorts of wars fought over all that. Obviously, none of us want to go back to those bad old days where we are in a state of constant turmoil because of which particular rite are you going to use, which prayer book. And so, are there difficult decisions the bishop has to make? Is part of what I heard you ask? Yes. We need to get wherever it is that we're going together, is the case as well. And so, yes, there's any number of things like that are very fraught, and you're not going to get to 100% agreement on anything. And so the particular word that jumps out at me is compromise. I think the very nature of life together is compromise. We've been married 30 years. She does a lot of things wrong. She likes it to be warmer in the house in the winter. I like it to be cooler. She likes it to be warmer in the house in the summer. I like it. There's just all sorts of things in our lives together. I think my parishioners will all tell you I've compromised with them on all kinds of things to try to meet them where they are and do ministry to them. And there's all kinds of things that back to that question about vision, all kinds of things I envisioned coming to Holy Apostles, and this is the way it's going to be, and then I find that, well, maybe not. Maybe the people in the pews are not ready perhaps for that particular thing, or maybe they've got some understanding that I don't have yet. And so
we have time for one more.
Yeah. Please. Yes, sir.
If I were not an Anglican, why should I become one?
Why should you become one? You should become an Anglican because it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. To start with, it's you should become an Anglican for the same reason that I became an Anglican, because I was searching for the historic church, and I was searching for the apostolic succession. I was searching for the sacraments, and I didn't find them in any of the places that I had been. But I found them in the Anglican Church, and that has made all the difference in my life.
But if I didn't know anything about any of that,
yeah, we would have to unpack some of those terms and some of that idea. Yes, sir.
How would you project that
right
to the population to make them want to become Anglican?
Yeah. I think one of the things that's really, really important is that we invite people to come experience who we are and what we do. I mean, that's my own story. As a Baptist, the grandson of a Baptist church planter who left Oklahoma along with all the other Okies and went out to California and planted 3 or 4 churches out in Central California. I found myself one Christmas Eve at Christmas Eve midnight Mass at St. George's Episcopal Church in Nashville, Tennessee, and I was blown away by what I experienced. I didn't know what to call any of it. I didn't, frankly, know which way was up. I just knew that there was something compellingly beautiful about that transcendent experience that I had, and I knew that God was there in the midst of all this stuff that was making my head spin. So I think I'm not so very different from a lot of people in that sense, that they needed to be invited to come and experience rather than be argued into whack them over the head with the prayer book or something like that. Probably not the best approach. Yeah.
To honor everybody's time and to keep things moving along, I know we had several questions outstanding. We're going to